Welcome to Chamber Champions. I'm Derek Miller with the Salt Lake Chamber, Utah's voice for business. Each week, we take the opportunity to speak with leaders from business, government, education, and community service organizations who are making a difference in Utah. As a Chamber Champion, these individuals are recognized for their contributions and provided a forum to empower their vision and objectives. Today we're joined with Jack Hedge, the Executive Director of the Utah Inland Port. And Jack, thanks for joining us.
Well, Derek, thank you for having me. I appreciate this.
I think that the inland port is one of those issues where it's so important, where people are able to get facts. There's a lot of information that floats out there that isn't necessarily factual. And so we appreciate you taking time to get important and accurate information out to the public. And why don't we start by just giving us an overview of the inland port? I think it's one of these things that people have heard inland port and they're thinking, what is that? So what is it?
Yeah, so you're right. There's a lot of misconceptions out there, and there have been for quite a while. And misperceptions are interesting because they do tend to form people's opinions about things. Thanks for this opportunity to get some facts out on the table. The inland port is, by definition, it's an inland logistics hub that's directly connected to a port and supports port operations, seaport operations. And that, to a large degree, has been happening out there for quite a while. It's been happening organically and not intentionally. And so we, as the Port Authority, are trying to take that some of the work that's been happening out there and has sort of grown organically and make it more intentional. And by that, what we mean is trying to look at how it fits into the North American logistics system, what other facilities exist in and around the state that could be linked and tied to, all in an attempt to make everything flow better. And if anything, we've seen in 2020, one of the things that we've seen is people are suddenly very aware of their supply chains. They're suddenly very aware of what happens when things don't flow efficiently and effectively. And so looking at this location within that network, how does it interact with other facilities? How do goods flow to and through the state? Understanding all of that, and then starting to do some things with intention can help prevent those kinds of disruptions in the future.
One of the ways that I like to talk about it is, and I like the word that you use, to have that specific intention. And one of the things that I think about is a way to maximize the economic opportunity while minimizing the environmental impact to it, where if it wasn't done intentionally, neither of those things would happen.
I think you're right. I think certain people will get some economic benefit, and a lot of people will take an environmental hit. And logistics is changing pretty rapidly. It is, you no longer have to build dirty logistics. You inherit them, but you don't have to build them. So we've got an opportunity here with something of a clean slate to sort of reset the bar about how logistics facilities are built and how they're operated. And frankly, that's where the capital is going. That's where the market demand is going, toward these cleaner, more sustainable types of facilities and operations. Huge moves towards zero emissions equipment and trucking, huge moves toward automation and autonomy, which creates a whole different level of job and better, more efficient jobs. And then understanding maybe best practices around other ports and other inland ports, and starting so that you can deal with things like traffic congestions through time of day servicing and traffic routing and those kinds of things. Those are all things that we get the chance to do that, you're right, wouldn't have happened organically.
So logistics is an important word, and one that you've used a few times, not something new to Utah. In fact, it goes back to the very founding and settling of Utah as the crossroads of the West, true, of course, in the time of the pioneers, true during the California Gold Rush in 1849 and subsequent to that, and then true even in the modern era with the building of the I-15 and the I-80 and the transportation corridors that we have, not just freeway, but rail and even high-speed broadband internet. I think it's interesting for people to know that Utah is the node or the hub when it comes to that fiber network. Now, having said that, people may be wondering, and you referenced this a little bit, people may be wondering, my gosh, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, everything's been disrupted. Is this really the right time to move forward with an inland port in Utah? What's your answer to that?
Oh, it's exactly the right time, and in fact, it's more important now probably than ever before. And I touched on it earlier: the disruption in the supply chain, how that affected our lives, how that continues to affect our lives and impact our lives. And as we grow back from our economy, back from the pandemic, the effects of the pandemic, having a strong logistics system is the backbone of a strong economy. It is necessary and important to have if you have a growing population, if you have a growing economy. It's necessary to have a strong logistics system so that you can just get the goods and the products that you need to either build your product or consume your goods. It's just necessary to have for a strong economy. And if you don't have it, it's actually a drag on the economy. Look at places that don't have good logistics systems and they struggle. Yeah. And it's because it's just hard to move goods and get goods to market and things like that. So it's absolutely the right time to do it, but it's the right time to do it in a smart, forward-thinking way. Not just trying to rebuild what we had before, but how do we rebuild it better, smarter, faster?
Let's talk. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
Let's talk for just a minute about that forward-thinking way, how to do it better and faster. And, I think Utahns in general have kind of a love-hate relationship when it comes to growth. Yeah. We like to see what's happening as far as opportunities for ourselves, for our families, for our kids that want to live and stay in Utah. On the other hand, we see some of the downside to growth. And you experience that when you're driving on the I-15. You experience it when we're having a bad air quality day. When people think about managing that economic growth while minimizing the environmental impact, I think most people think of that in terms of quality of life. How does quality of life play into what we're doing with the inland port?
Well, I mean, it's huge. It's huge, and it was a real focus of our strategic planning effort, and which we passed earlier this summer. It's that quality of life is the question to answer. The reason logistics is so important to us is because it directly goes to our quality of life, the ability to get the goods that we need, the products that we need. But there are impacts that we have to look at and we have to plan for. And there are things that we can do in the short term that actually will alleviate some of the impacts that we currently have. There are things that we're doing with the inland port, and you'll start seeing some announcements very soon in the next few weeks that we can do that will start doing things to reduce the air emissions from port operations, that will reduce the amount of truck traffic to and through that location in West Salt Lake. That has a very immediate beneficial impact on the residents of the west side of Salt Lake, in Rose Park and West Salt Lake, and in West Valley City and some of those other places. As if we can divert traffic away from that area, divert cargo away from that area, it lessens the amount of cargo flowing into that area. If it doesn't need to come here, don't bring it here. Those are the kinds of things that we can do. And it all goes to understanding what the different assets are that we have around the state, how do goods flow to and through Utah, and where can we move those things in different ways that actually will benefit all of us and benefit, frankly, the whole economy of North America.
I think this is a really important point to make, that this really is a statewide project, a statewide concept. In fact, maybe even broader than the state of Utah. Maybe you could even call it an Intermountain West concept. But typically when people think of the inland port, they're thinking about the infrastructure. You're talking about it in terms of a network.
It is.
And something that would benefit the entire state.
Yeah, it is. It's very much a network. It's not just a place. It is a network. And Utah's position in the network in North America is really unique. If you took a map of North America and put the West Coast up on the top, it would look like a funnel with all the rail and all the freeways coming right through here and then going out into the Midwest. And it's a funnel back the other way as well for exports, U.S. exports out to the global market. So it is a unique place in a unique position in the global economy, really, that we're sitting in. And it's important that we use that to our advantage, not just economically, but also in terms of the quality of life, the impact on what can we do to reduce emissions and that goods flow that goes through to and through here. What can we do to reduce other environmental issues, quality of life, create better jobs, all those kinds of things that we can do. And not just here in the Wasatch Front, but really as a statewide initiative, like you mentioned. So we're out right now looking around the state, working with our counties around the state, mapping what other assets are out there. Maybe were built for other industries in the past, maybe not being utilized fully today. How can we repurpose, reposition those assets in that global network, in that global supply chain? And so, again, doing it with intention so that we can understand what those things are. How do we match those up with goods flows, with cargoes flows, and create economic opportunity off the Wasatch Front?
Let's talk for a minute about some specifics and tell us what's the current state of the inland port, what's happened over the previous 6 months, and what'll happen in the next 6 months.
Okay. Yeah. And it's been a busy year since I've been here, the last year since I've been here. The biggest hurdle and sort of the biggest milestone that we got to was getting our strategic plan finished and getting that formalized and approved. I don't think that was maybe what a lot of folks were looking at. I think that's another one of those misconceptions about what we were doing. It's not a development plan. We're not the landowner. We're not the developer. So it's a strategic plan about how we use the tools and how we position ourselves going forward is really what that strategic plan was about. It sets some guidelines for some policies, and you'll start seeing policy initiatives coming out of the inland port, building on our recently announced joint ventures with our partnerships with Rocky Mountain Power to promote renewable energy usage in all inland port facilities throughout the state, including here in Salt Lake City, to promote the use and uptake of electric vehicles in goods movement. So electric trucks, electric delivery vans, and electric cargo handling equipment is a huge thing. And again, that's a statewide initiative. We'll be doing that all over the state. We've also recently entered into an agreement with Dominion Energy. And a big part of that agreement is to look at the opportunity to convert vehicles and equipment to LNG, liquefied natural gas, renewable natural gas, which we can take out of landfills, which reduces the amount of greenhouse gases being emitted into our atmosphere, which improves air quality. So a lot of things that we're doing along these lines that will help do some things. And you're going to see more in the next several weeks and months as we continue to move forward. Very
good. Well, we look forward to seeing that work as it progresses. Last question. Okay. We talk about this in big terms, that this is something that will have a tremendous impact on Utah's economy, potentially for the next 50 years. When something is that big of a deal, people want to be involved. People have questions. People maybe even have concerns. How can they get those questions answered? How can they get involved?
Well, I mean, the easiest thing to do, you can look at our website, inlandportauthority.utah.gov. You can follow our board meetings. We have quarterly board meetings where we talk about our policy initiatives and our policy directives. And as we have projects that we're bringing forward, those will be brought forward at the board meetings. We're setting up social media accounts on Instagram and Twitter. I have my LinkedIn page. You can follow us there. I post a lot of things on my LinkedIn page and my personal Twitter account. So there's a lot of way to follow it and get involved and be involved. But one of the things that we're actually looking at doing as well is we're creating some advisory committees, some advisory boards that will advise us on everything from community impacts to water quality issues going into the Great Salt Lake and habitat issues around some of the sensitive areas around our different projects as we build them out around the state. And so there will be opportunities there for public involvement and public engagement there as well. So,
Jack Hedge, Executive Director of the Utah Inland Port, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Derek. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Right.